We're going to be talking about a little bit about community association websites and then some general technology tips and some community association management tips. I had a bunch of questions submitted from several of you about how I've handled things or people that I know how they've handled things in the past. For those of you who don't know me, you may know me from Gray Systems, from K. Bender Rembaum, which is a community association law firm, from ACE. Been in the industry in the state of Florida for almost 30 years. I started when I was 5 and bring some management experience. I was part of a team of over 10,000 residents, almost 600 acres in South Florida, 44 associations plus a master, which is the main reason for losing a lot of this hair. So, I get it. It's not an easy gig, whether you're a board member or a manager. We're also going to talk a little bit. One of the questions that I had was about some stress relief. What did you do to combat some of the stress and pressures of the day-to-day being on site? It's a lot harder when you're on site sometimes than being a portfolio manager. All right, one more minute and then we'll get started. Those of you who joined after my informal introduction a short while ago, I'm Jeff Solomon with Gray Systems. I have 30 years or so experience in the community association industry as a manager, as a business provider, as a consultant, web designer, all kinds of stuff. I get bored really easily, so I like to mix it up a little bit. And decided to go out on my own, and I'm fortunate enough now to work with a great company like Gray Systems and a few others, which you may have seen me partake of in the past. So without further ado, I want to get started. The Q&A is open. If you have any questions, type the questions into the Q&A, and I will, if it's appropriate, based on the topics we talk about today, we'll address it. Keep in mind, too, that nothing here, even if it sounds legal in nature, I'm not an attorney. Nothing here today should be considered as legal advice whatsoever. So if you have any questions, you're not sure about something that I mention or an opinion that I might share with you, if you're not sure if it's something you can do, always contact your association counsel. Always, 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 even if you're a manager with 30 years experience or more, because trying to skimp and do something on the cheap now can cost you and your association a lot more in the long run. Remember that. I've learned that the hard way when I was younger. All right. So we're going to talk about community association websites. I know there's a lot of confusion out there. I addressed some of the questions here and we'll get started. So that's the first topic. First thing is I want to remind everybody about living in a community association. Most of you know this, but it's a nice reminder. I'm a science fiction nerd, and one of my favorite IPs is Star Trek and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. If you remember, if you saw the movie, Spock saved the entire Enterprise from certain doom. He sacrificed his life to save the Enterprise from a planet that was about to explode. And his famous line, which you may have heard, is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And this is a wonderful quote for community association living, condominiums, HOAs, it doesn't matter. There are so many shared aspects, and you got to remember, do the best you can to remember as a board member or a CAM, or just somebody living in an association in general, it's not all about you. Many shared spaces, amenities, roads, parking lots, parks, services, and just because a service that the association may sign up for, like a bulk internet, for example, since we're talking about tech, maybe you don't need bulk internet. Well, 95% of the community probably does. So, I mean, that's just one example of many. Just remember when you're in association living, it's not just about the one, it's about the greater good, the greater whole association. So just keep in mind it's about what's in the association's best interest. And whether it's in the business world, the community association world, a common phrase is communication is key, and effective communication helps to keep the peace. Do the best you can to remember, whether you're a CAM or a board member, a committee member, when you have an irate homeowner, if this homeowner is coming and banging on your door, sending nasty emails, do the best you can to remember that it's not a personal attack on us. The person is much more likely to be upset with a particular policy or task or something that happened. It's not necessarily about the individual. Not to say that it never happens. You get some people that don't make sense sometimes. We all face it. But remember, do the best you can to remember it's about the issue or the topic, not about the person. Not everybody may have as good of a communication skill set as you might have. So just do the best you can to remember that. And there are so many technology options out there to help communicate and to help keep the peace. And that's what we're going to touch upon today as well. But first, like I said, we're going to talk about association websites and its requirements. First, getting with condominiums, it is now required, well, it'll be due, you have to have it done by January 1st of 2026. But for condominiums, it has been changed from 150 units or more. It is now 25 or more units for condominiums. For HOAs, which must have been created by January 1 of this year. So if you haven't done it, get on it. And like I said, we can help you with that. It's required for 100 or more parcels in a homeowners association. So remember that too. Now, maybe you already have a website, but maybe it doesn't have a portal, which we'll get into a little bit later for owners to get in and see the required stuff. But we're going to get into that as well in a moment. And one other thing I want to mention too, the term, the acronym HOA is used way too loosely. It lends to the confusion. I have people all the time in courses that I moderate. They come to a condominium board member certification, but they actually live in an HOA because their manager, believe it or not, sends them a link to the condo class when they're in an HOA. And too many people throw the acronym around HOA. What do you pay every month for your HOA? What do you pay for your HOA assessments if they live in a condo? So get into the habit of calling it a monthly assessment or a monthly maintenance payment for your condominium or for your HOA. It helps to try to get rid of that confusion. People just using the wrong terms all the time and end up in the wrong class. So this is taken straight from the Florida DBPR course and also from the Gray Systems course. Gray Systems teaches the board member certification classes, the legal updates, the whole 9 yards. So straight from these resources, what must websites have according to state statutes? And I'm going to mention them here. This is going to be one of the few times where I read everything verbatim. Your governing documents, your rules and regs, a list of all contracts or documents that are in effect, a list. Okay, that's some of the confusion here. You don't have to have the actual contract on there. Some attorneys err on the side of caution because it is kind of vague, but this is what the slide says straight from the DBPR, a list, a list. But again, if your association council says put the contract on there, not going to hurt anything. But that's why I say always contact your council, go for his, her, or their opinion. Summaries of bids for materials, equipment, or services which exceed $500. Copies of bids may be posted in lieu of these summaries, and that's for condominiums. For HOA, you just need a list of the bids. And again, this is what the law says. I'm not interpreting it. This is just what it says. The annual budget and any proposed budget, the financial reports and monthly income or expense statements, all contracts or transactions between the association and any director, officer, corporation, firm, or association. This helps with transparency. Any contract or document regarding conflict of interest. Again, another thing assisting with transparency. Notices of board meetings, notices of unit owner meetings, current insurance policies for your HOA. Okay, that's specifying whether it's condo or HOA. So your current insurance policies, inspection reports for your condos, your SIRS or structural integrity reserve study reports for condos, and building permits for condos. And yes, you will get these slides afterwards. Another question we get constantly, do I need a website or do I need a portal or both? What's the difference? What I'm going to say is don't overthink it. But a basic definition, a website is your public part that the general public can see. So maybe you have something about your amenities, a calendar of upcoming events you might have going on, or places for sale, or whatever. Things that you don't need to log in to a private section to see and to view. Okay. The portal is the page that provides back-end access for privately held information, such as the requirements that we just went over here. So I'm sorry, wrong page. So you would have a portal to enter a username or a password to get in to see this stuff. And it typically will look something like this. You enter a username, you enter a password, you press enter, and it gets into the back end of the website. But again, don't overthink it. Some people call it a website, some people call it a portal, some people call it an app. Whatever you want to call it, whatever you use, as long as you have the password protected section to get into to view for owners only, that's going to be sufficient to fulfill the legislative requirement. Hope that makes sense. Again, if I'm not clear, type into the Q&A. Another question we get quite often, website or app? Now, this is my personal opinion. Doesn't necessarily reflect the opinions of Gray Systems or anybody else you see me work with. I think an app is a waste of money. My opinion. Okay, app is a waste of money because we have what we call a responsive website. And this is something Gray Systems does for community associations as well. We create responsive websites. And what that means is it's not a website that just responds and works. It's great to have a functioning website. You want a functioning website. But what a responsive design means is that it conforms to the size of your screen. So you take a website that looks great on your 20-inch monitor at your desktop, but then if you're looking at the same website on your phone, it'll conform to the size of your phone. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a website and share my screen for a second. So I'm going to stop my share here, and I'm going to go to graysystems.com, and I want to show you exactly what I mean by responsive website. And then I'll give you another couple of examples. So let's see here. Let me make sure that this works. That's not a good one there. All right. So here's a little test that you can do on your own to see if a website is responsive or not. So here's the Gray Systems website. Here it is, filling up almost the entire monitor. And then what you can do is you can shrink the window size. Watch this. I'm going to shrink it down now. And you see how everything starts to move around, conforming to the size of the window? You'll notice too, the menu, this is what it would look like on a phone. So that's how you can tell if a website is responsive or not. It's responding to the size of the screen. And then the menu switches from a menu bar to a little drop down. And the reasons that sites are responsive and why they're so good is that if you take a website that was not responsive and you do this, it just gets really, really tiny and you can't see anything. So that's what a responsive website does. It responds to the different sizes and shapes of the screens. Some are better than others, but that's the gist of it. That's the general point of a responsive website design. And everything that we do, there's no need for an app because the website will conform to the size of the screen. And that's why I am of the opinion that having both is a waste of money. Another thing too is almost every day you wake up, right, and you look at your phone, there's a little number next to your app store, meaning you have to update the apps. It's another issue is that if you have an app along with a website, you have to keep updating the app to make sure it's compatible with every phone, make and model, every operating system. Gets to be a pain in the you know what. So that's my opinion. In my opinion, an app is not something that it's wonderful. It could be great. Maybe that's what you want, but If you have a responsive website, not really needed. Some other great communication techniques. Now that we talked about websites, type in if you have any other questions about websites, put them in the Q&A. And if it's appropriate, I will discuss and do my best to answer. Another thing that people have asked me about or asked Grace Systems about are digital message boards. In fact, and I promise I didn't plan this, if you look behind me, I'm using what you see on the screen now with what's behind me here. And I'll stop my share for a second. Back here, that's an old TV that I had that I wasn't using. I turned it vertical and I made digital movie poster frames out of it. And that's using pretty much the same technology we're going to talk about now. So one scenario is you can place an inexpensive television monitor in your clubhouse or in a public area, get an inexpensive Raspberry Pi type of computer for under $100 and an annual subscription for another $90. So you're talking out the door, an inexpensive TV, an on-screen subscription, an annual subscription, and a little computer for around $276 out the door. And you can type in messaging from anywhere in the world with an internet or a cell phone signal connection and update your messages to your owners. So you can educate everybody on where they go for the message board, say the clubhouse, the gym, both outside your movie room, outside your theater, whatever it might be, by the mail room. And you can have your meeting notices on there or upcoming events, places for sale, all kinds of cool stuff. All kinds of cool stuff. So that's digital messaging, a really inexpensive tip that you can bring to your community association. Other things you can do that are really inexpensive, which again, your management companies might offer this, but if they don't, or if it's something that you have to pay to add on with your management services, another thing you could look into is something like Constant Contact or MailChimp or Brevo or some of the other services out there. Some of these plans start as little as $12 a month because many associations don't have more than 500 to 700 contacts. So you don't need the higher subscriptions to have mass emails to your owners and to your residents. So email marketing platforms. You can schedule sends. You don't need to be in front of your computer and doing things real time. You can schedule things to email 3 days from now, a week from now, a month from now. Many of them can integrate with texting applications as well. So like, for example, companies like a Constant Contact, they have services with one of their tiers where you can email people. You could also text people. But remember, again, you have to get opt-in from your owners. So always speak with your association counsel if you're not sure. They must opt in to receive association business emails and texts. Keep that in mind. Another great tool is like what we're doing now, and COVID really put this stuff into the forefront of that, these hybrid meetings and use of video. I have a lot of condominium HOA clients that do hybrid meetings. They have their physical meeting space in the clubhouse or in the meeting room with a camera set up with a live Zoom feed. So you can broadcast or simulcast your monthly meetings, whether it's committee meetings, board meetings, town halls, whatever it might be, and you can simulcast your meetings out to everybody who might be out of town. You can record them. They're great for transcribing minutes to play back later for your secretary, easier for committees and part-timers to meet, all kinds of wonderful things. Again, I promise I wasn't going to just simply read these things. You'll have the slides afterwards, but use of video, tools like Zoom, great tools, great tools. There are many others out there. I just happen to use Zoom because I'm on a Zoom advisory committee. Now, getting back to websites, whether they're required or not, of course, now most of them are required, but most associations do have it required because they lowered it from 150 for condos to 25 units or more. But they're great communication tools, and like I said earlier, help keep the peace in your association. They help squash rumors. You can have a section for frequently asked questions. They're not going to eliminate phone calls and visits to the offices from owners and residents, but it's going to certainly help reduce phone calls and office visits, which will then help increase your productivity. You'll get more things done. Reduces paper costs, all kinds. It can replace a paper newsletter. You can update it from anywhere. The list goes on and on. They're all here. And again, I will share this with you. And I know I'm rushing through this, but I want to leave some time for Q&A, which is why I'm kind of going quickly through this so that we have time for people to communicate back and forth today. Another thing you could look into is a community TV channel. This is often included with association bulk internet or TV contracts. So ask your management company, ask your manager, ask your board, see if something like this is available with your internet service provider, your cable TV service provider. If it's not, you can start a inexpensive or free YouTube community channel and make it private. But keep that in mind for a second too, because we're going to talk about social media in a second, because the next section of our presentation today, I had 4 or 5 pre-submitted questions that I'm going to address, and one of them involves, do I think social media is a good idea for community associations? And we're going to get into that in a minute. But again, community TV channels, similar to websites, it helps squash rumors, frequently asked questions, reduces phone calls and office visits. You could have emergency messages on there, such as hurricane preparation, all kinds of stuff, updated from anywhere. One thing that is on here too, same thing with your website. You could have a space for it for advertisements. There's nothing in the legislation that I'm aware of, and again, always contact your counsel, that says you can't have a banner ad on your website to help offset the costs for your website. So let's say you sign up with Gray Systems to make your website. Our annual subscription, I think I'll look in a month. I think it's around $9.99 a year, not a month, a year, $999 a year, which is very reasonable. But let's say you had a banner ad on your website. Let's say your community association is close to a very popular pizza place or Italian restaurant. Approach that Italian restaurant. Hey, do you want to put a banner ad on the association website for $50 a month? 12 months later, that website's that annual subscription's about paid for, and it's a wash, and you look like a hero. Same thing with your community TV channel. Maybe you have a slide banner ad on there from local businesses. But then again, possibilities are endless there. You can do stuff like that and help offset the costs, raise a little revenue for your not-for-profit organization. Now we're going to get to the real-world Q&As. These are some of the questions that were submitted before we got into today's during the registration process. So earlier I mentioned mental health, anxiety, stress. It's not an easy gig. You're a manager, you're a board member. Board members, you're not getting paid for this. Managers, you're not getting paid enough. So what techniques have I used in the past to combat stress and burnout? Now, first I'm going to read these bullet points for those of you who might just be listening and not watching. And then I'm going to give you a real world scenario that happened to me that I don't want to happen to you. The first thing you should do is always set boundaries. Make sure that people are aware of what the communication channels are, what your office and contact hours are. And another technique that I've used is set reminders for yourself to take power breaks. Power breaks meaning get off your ass and walk around the office a little bit, just to get away from the desk, get away from the phone, get away from the keyboard, just get away from everything for a few minutes if you can. Whether it's walking around inside, outside, a quick 5-minute stroll, whatever it might be. Now, the second bullet point that I have here is in or near your office exercise mechanism. I know that sounds kind of odd, but what I did in the past, I was fortunate enough, I was able to move my office from where it was closer to the fitness center. So if I had an irate individual come in, or a stressful phone call, or I have a stressful situation, I would get off my butt, go into the gym, and just crank out 10 pull-ups, or just a quick set of bench pressing. Just let the stress out. You don't have that scenario, just some kind of exercise mechanism that you enjoy that helps release the stress. Could be walking around, get on the floor, do some push-ups, go outside, go into the bathroom and just scream, let it all out. Just find some kind of exercise coping mechanism that works for you, that you can do privately, and helps let some stress out. But again, that works for me. Everybody is going to be different. There is no one thing that we talk about ever that is going to work for everybody all of the time. Breathing techniques. Learn a little bit, maybe yoga or just some breathing techniques. Learn about that. Therapy. Therapy is not the enemy. And this is where I'm going to talk about my personal situation before I get to the rest of the bullet points. The large community I was managing in the past that I talked about early in this presentation. So this was going back now to 2012, I think it was 2011, 2012. We were having a candidates night in which we invited all of the judges running for office, as well as some of the local representatives for our districts, to all come in and give a presentation because our community was so big, the voting precinct was on site. So everybody who lived there went to our clubhouse to vote, as well as some people from the outside. Yes, Suzanne, I can. So the voting was on site at the facility. So anyway, I'm sitting in the meeting room. My employee that was going to run that had to go home for an emergency for her daughter. So rather than ruin one of my other staff members' lives and make them come in that evening, I did it. So I sat at the registration table in the back of the room. So here I am with my registration list. I have judges coming at me from this angle. I have representatives coming at me from this angle, residents this way asking all kinds of questions. It was chaos. And next thing I knew, I woke up in the nurse's station. I freaking passed out, which is the second time that that had happened. And that's when I realized that I am not going to let this job give me a freaking heart attack. So, and back then, I'm not a small person now, but back then I was around 240 pounds, a competitive power lifter. I did competitions and stuff. So my mindset was, I'm a man, damn it. I don't need therapy. I can do this myself. I pushed it down. I ignored my mental health. I didn't want to deal with it. And that's what ended up happening. That was the final straw. And now I'm a big proponent of going to somebody and talking to somebody about your real world issues. There's nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of, whether you have 25-inch arms or 11-inch arms, or whether you're a man or a woman or a they, it doesn't matter. Mind your mental health first. You cannot take care of others if you do not take care of yourself, whether it's an association job, whether you're a board member, whether you're taking care of your family. It's like what they say on a plane when you're flying, when the flight attendants and pilots do their announcements and they do the emergency thing and they say the oxygen masks, if the oxygen masks come down, put it on yourself before you help others who cannot do it themselves. Same principle. Mind your mental health. Therapy is not the enemy. That's what that bullet point says. So getting back to the bullet points, take your lunch breaks out of the damn office. Don't eat at your desk. Don't eat in the conference room. Get away. Get away from work for a little bit. Go. Okay? Common networking groups, such as like what we're doing now. Although Gray Systems, when you're a Gray Systems client, we are going to begin once again having client-only powwows where we all just meet on Zoom and we just BS with one another. We'll share war stories. We'll ask one another, hey, I had this situation happen at my HOA in my condo. Anybody else out there have something similar? And if yeah, how'd you handle it? We're going to be doing stuff like that. And if you're occasionally, we'll do it for anybody. But if you're a Gray Systems client, whether it's our website services, whether you take any of our classes, whether you buy any of the products such as the compendium, we're going to be inviting you to Gray Systems own client only events where we just help each other out. Okay. And lastly, if it's permitted at your workplace, try to find some time to work remotely. Do some of your work away. Just get away from it, especially if you're on site all the time. Now, I know that can be contradictory with what I said about mental health, working at home, like I'm in my home now, for example. The lines can be, and COVID really blurred these lines about working from home and getting, so how can you work from home but also get away from it all? So for example, it's like when you do your taxes. Do you have a room in your house? If you're trying to get a deduction for an office space in your home, for example, make sure that room, that's where you go for work. And then everywhere else in the house, you don't do work. Don't take your laptop to the couch, sit with your dogs, and try to get work done. Okay, that again, that's just what works for me. Everybody's different. Just mind, all I could say is mind your mental health and pay attention to it. Don't hold it inside. Don't let it build up. Don't have a heart attack over your job. Again, any questions, type them into the Q&A or comments. Maybe you have a situation that works for you and you want to share it with everybody. Type it into the Q&A. I'll share it with if it's okay with you, I can share it with everybody. Our next question that we had submitted, what are the mandatory requirements concerning an online presentation for CAMS? I'm not quite sure what that person meant by that, but I'm assuming the person meant by when providers teach a CEU course for CAMS online. That's the way I took that question. So what we have to do, whether it's Gray Systems, whether it's some of the other organizations I may have taught for in the past, this is what we had to do. Anytime the course is promoted, the advertisement must include the course number, the course title, and the state issued education provider number. We must have accurate records showing that attendees attended the class in full. So let's say we get a records request. Let's say a board member takes a certification class or a CAM takes a CEU class, and that CAM is being challenged for disciplinary action or whatever it might be. The state contacts us as the education provider. They want to see records. The records have to show that the CAM took that particular class, came in on time, stayed for the entire time, not partial way. The last thing we want to do is give credit to a board member or a manager for a 1 hour CEU when the records show they only attended 30 minutes of the required 60 or the required 55 minutes, whatever it is. I have to look. But the records must be accurate and the students must attend in full. Please don't ask your management company, don't ask a vendor or a Gray Systems to fudge the truth. Please show up on time, stay for the entire time. So that's the next bullet point. Providers must keep the accurate record should a challenge ever come up. The fourth bullet point, providers, like a Gray Systems, must provide an avenue for questions and course feedback, such as Q&A, an evaluation form, anything such as that. Okay. And the last bullet point, to qualify for CE credit, providers must have the course outline approved by the state. And one thing that has changed in the last 11 months since July 2024, when the last legislature items were passed, there is now a different office that approves classes for board member certification and board member continuing education. And it's a different office than the office that approves classes for manager CEU classes, two different offices. So that's why providers like Gray Systems and anybody else for that matter, is we've been a little slow in getting our HOA board member CEU classes out there because they have to go through a whole different and new approval process. We've done that. Gray Systems has submitted a few courses for board member CEU training. We just haven't gotten the response, the approvals back yet. But we're in constant contact with them every single day. The next real world question and answer that was submitted. What do I think of social media platforms for community associations? I think they suck. And the reason I think they are not a good idea is it is a breeding ground. It's a breeding ground for negativity and conflict. Even with your private groups, okay? There are private groups out there where you have to be a member to get in, for example, or you have to be permitted to get into the group by the moderator. You can still take a screenshot of something on there. There is nothing to stop me from taking a screenshot of something that I see on a private group and then sharing it publicly for the entire world to see. There's many examples. One example of that's not gonna do well for your property values. For example, let's say you have some dirty laundry of something going on in an association, and it happens to be on a private Facebook group. That dirty laundry, even though it's on the private Facebook group, that mess can still get out there. All it takes is one person. All it takes is one person. All right. Social media, bad idea. You're not going to be able to stop individuals from doing it, but as a management company, as a board member, as a committee leader, I would stay away from social media altogether. Have an official channel. Maybe you can make it part of your website, uh, something that you have better control over. You have very little control when it comes to social media. Very little control. That old adage that once it's out there, even if you delete it, it's out there forever. Same holds true here. Oftentimes you have these actors in Hollywood putting some stupid quote on there, whether it's regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, it doesn't matter. We're not about that. But let's say an actor, a Hollywood actor, puts his, her, or their opinion on there about something, and then 20 minutes later, their publicist says, "Oh my God, that shouldn't be on there." They take it off. Too late. Too late. It's out there. It's been shared. Somebody took a picture of it, reshared it. Same thing can happen with your association. It undermines your authority and the ability to enforce rules and regulations. It undermines everything. It can bring your association into legal risks and liabilities, promoting potential inaccuracies, privacy concerns, privacy concerns, misinformation. And I have on here April 1st example. Um, and again, I'm going back to something like politics is the easiest thing to pick on. I'm not talking about one side or the other, but it's easy to pick on politics because most people will go ahead and do research on a site that aligns with their beliefs to begin with. Okay. And that's my April 1st example. I always joke with my friends and family that why is it that April Fool's Day is the only time people go out and do legitimate research? Anyway, that's for another time. And lastly, you have loss of control because with a social media group, heavy moderation is very, very time consuming. So no matter how hard you try to moderate inappropriate stuff that should or should not be on there, I mean, that could take up half a day. Who wants to be doing that? And then it also promotes infighting, complaints, and it can be detrimental to the atmosphere of the community, of the association. And again, that can get out. Realtors can get wind of it. And maybe the realtor stops pushing sales in your community, which is going to potentially dip property values. Social media, bad, in my opinion. Our next question, I think this is the last one. Let me just see here. Yeah. Our next question is, I am a licensed CAM and take classes for credit all the time. I am also a board member where I live. Do I still need to take the board member certification? And in my best Macho Man Randy Savage voice, ooh, yeah, you do. What you can do, though, is kill two birds with one stone. Look for a class that was approved for both board certification as well as CAM credit. So if you're a manager, you get your board certification and you get CAM credit at the same time. And I know that's something Gray Systems is actively doing as well with our board certs. We're looking to also get them approved for CAMs, I believe. And then also seek out here's some other tips. Seek out an organization such as Gray Systems, which offers these longer sessions, like the condo board cert. There's a time mandate. It's 4 hours. HOA doesn't need to be 4 hours. There's no time mandate in the legislation for that one, but they also are lengthy. They're usually somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. Seek out companies like a Gray Systems that offer these during more convenient times, such as weekend mornings or evenings, and it won't conflict with your daytime. Let me see. One of our listeners looks like we're texting in here. Um, so seek out convenient times. And then this is our final slide here. And again, you'll get all of this. We want to thank you. The Q&A is open if you have any questions that you'd like to pose right now. Maybe you have, again, a tip or a trick. Maybe you have a suggestion for future presentations. We will send out an email thanking you for attending tomorrow. We'll have a question on there about things you want to talk about in the future, and we'll share these slides. But we want to thank you for attending today. Gray Systems is here for you. We offer CAM continuing education, the pre-licensure courses, board member certification, board member CEUs soon. Like I said, we're trying to get those dang things approved. All kinds of publications, such as Fred Gray's popular and famous compendium, which is updated every year, community association websites. And remember, we're not some company that does all kinds of websites and also does association websites. We only do association websites. So we are experts on this. We can help you out with that. We do all kinds of community association consulting for, we could do one-time charges. We can do monthly fees for up to X amount of hours of consultation just to bounce ideas off of, talk, let stresses out, anxieties out. And we also offer contractor licensed CEUs. So if anybody has any questions, tips, concerns, anything at all, thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's always good to see you. I know you're one of our regulars on some of the other things we do, so it's always great to see you. We will send out an email tomorrow for everybody who attended. And once again, I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. We will see you next time, unless, oh, I see a question here. Hang on. From Cassiano. What's your advice for interviewing CAMs such as myself? I have my license now and I'm eager to start. So when you say, Cassiano, if you could elaborate, when you say advice for interviewing, do you mean going in for an interview, or do you mean I'm the one doing the interviewing? What can you elaborate on what you mean by that real quick? As I take a sip from my Let's Go Mets coffee cup. And you want to talk about stress and anxiety. I'm a pro. I've learned how to handle stress and anxiety because I'm a Mets fan. Our life is nothing but stress and anxiety. But all right, so Cassiano, if you mean advice for you as a CAM, in my opinion, anybody can be book smart. Okay. I'm coming from okay, being interviewed. That's what I thought. That's where I'm going with this. Anybody can work on their memorization skills. Anybody can study and ace a test. Anybody can be book smart. Anybody can read and memorize legislation. That's it. Again, in my opinion, that's not the hard part. So when you go for interviews, what is not done enough is also convey that you're a people person, a customer service person. Convey that you are a listener. Convey that you have the ability to relate with people. Showing empathy, can balance and juggle different scenarios that you believe, like what we spoke about during one of the slides earlier with the Mr. Spock example, that you understand the differences between when it's all about me versus when it's about the greater good or the entire community association. That is something that is overlooked way too often. That's good. 10 years of sales and customer service experience. Focus on that. Too many CAMs focus on the book smart aspect. Focus on the give equal time to the people aspect. I hope that makes sense. Peter, contact us at hang on here. It's graysystems.com. Just simple, graysystems.com. And there's a form on there to fill out the information to get more info about services and the website aspect of our company. Cassiano, you're very welcome. Very welcome. There are all kinds of classes out there. Way too many on the financial aspect and way too many on the legal aspect and maintenance. There's not enough out there about real world CEUs and real world situations. There needs to be more of that. So send us your suggestions. Tomorrow, when we send out the thank you for attending, we'll have a very brief evaluation. Spread the word, type in some suggestions on there, and we'll do our best to present these for you in the future. Daniel, this is not a credited class. I'm so sorry. Anytime we promote anything that is for credit, it'll say on there that there's credit. This one didn't have on there. I hope this wasn't a waste of your time, and I hope you found it valuable. But there's no CE for this one. Anytime there was a CE for it, whether I'm doing it with Gray Systems or some of the others, that I do this with, we put on there the course number, the provider number, the type of credit. We'll make it very, very clear when something's for credit. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. Yeah, this today was not for credit. Today was more of a informational only type of thing. Any other questions? Thank you, Cassiano. All right, I'm going to head out. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we will see you the next time. And remember, stay hydrated and mind your mental health. Take care of yourself. You can't take care of your boards and your residents if you don't take care of yourself first. Bye, everybody. Ciao for now.